Hello everyone and welcome to Slash Film Daily for March 23rd, 2018. My name is Ben Pearson. I am the senior writer at slashfilm.com. Our editor-in-chief and regular host, Peter Soretta, is out on vacation for a week. So today I'm going to present a Pacific Rim Uprising-themed episode of the show. I went to the press junket here in Los Angeles for this movie, and I ended up speaking with writer-director Stephen S. DeKnight and John Boyega, who stars in the film as Jake Pentecost, the son of Idris Elba's Stacker Pentecost. So I'm going to present both of those interviews for you here, and that's going to be all we're going to do for this particular episode of the show. So first up, let's talk with John Boyega. I sat down with him, talked to him about Jake's attitude, his swagger, the challenges of producing a movie like this, and his personal favorite ice cream toppings. Take a listen. Well, congrats on the movie, man.
No, thank you, man.
The film deals with the concept of legacy. As an actor, does that idea of legacy factor in for you to the choices that you make?
Definitely. I think specifically artistic legacy is something that, artists in general find important. The kind of content you release, what it does to the audience, how they perceive your performance, and all that kind of stuff. It matters to me, definitely. And being involved in sci-fi, anything I've done really has been a blatant and purposeful decision.
Cool. Jake has a swagger to him that we haven't really seen from you on camera before. Was that a particular aspect of the character that you connected with? Was that something?
Loved Jake's swag and the freedom of Jake. And I wanted to just implement that because it's so important in the writing that it came across as this guy is a rebel. And my thing was coming in, was like, how do we layer this? How do you make it specific, an individual that doesn't care what anybody thinks of him? Make him free. And then Jake embodies a free human being. He just doesn't care. Yeah. It's great.
You not only starred in this movie, but you produced it as well. What was that experience like for you?
It was a fantastic experience. I love being, I've always been the type to watch the special features of a Blu-ray disc, or to jump into a B-roll to see how it actually works on set. And I was always intrigued by the various different departments that come together to create a production like this, and the producing role and guarding and then guiding a project from its birth all the way onto its death on Blu-ray. It was something that I always wanted to be a part of.
Did you see the scripts in the early stages? I mean, how early on did you come on? Because I know like Guillermo del Toro was working on a draft.
I wasn't involved when Guillermo del Toro was involved as a director, but once he stepped down, was producing, and they hired Steve DeKnight, and Steve DeKnight had given him a few drafts. I came on board, and we were still going through refining the parts of the roles. And then all the way up until, obviously working on the previs for the CG element, and then going on to casting. Yeah. All the way ended up in the market, still at it now.
Yeah. What was the biggest challenge for you from a producing standpoint?
The time. It really felt like Han Solo was establishing this whole thing. And don't tell me the odds, because Lord, the odds was up against us in terms of how much time we had. And of course, casting gets real complicated when certain actors obviously are time and schedule to do other projects, and so you're going around location scouting and trying to make all these things work out in this set time. And for me, it just got real crazy.
Yeah. Star Wars The Last Jedi, it sees Finn basically go from somebody who's running away to like a resistance leader. Han Solo, you mentioned, became a general when he stopped running in Return of the Jedi. Have you talked to JJ? Can you tease the next step for Finn, the next evolution of that character?
I really don't know, but I'm gonna try and meet him on my trip here to LA before I leave to China, just to talk him through, him to talk me through exactly what his plans are and stuff, because I'm so intrigued to hear what he wants to do.
Cool. When you signed on to this movie, did you sign on for a sequel? Do you think we'll see Jake Pentecost in Pacific Rim 3 if it does well enough?
I mean, yeah, exactly. If it does well, definitely you will. I'll see to it. Definitely.
Cool. All right, I have one more Star Wars question. The Force Awakens did not feature a romantic relationship between Finn and Rey, and I think people love that. But it seems like those same fans now really, really want to see Finn in a romance, whether it's with Rey or Rose or Poe.
Or Chewbacca or anyone. Guys are going savage.
Why do you think that is? And who would you like to see Finn end up with, if anyone?
Because Finn is the one character for me that has a distinct, unique relationship with everybody. He had this kind of banterous relationship with Han, then he has this loving relationship with Rey. Now with Rose, it feels like, he has this great relationship. Personally, Rey.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I think people will probably be happy to hear you say that.
Rey.
So I want to get back to Uprising for a second. So a lot of this movie involves your character inside a Jaeger piloting this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, how did you go about differentiating the intensity levels of the different scenes that you're supposed to be in so it didn't all feel like a blur when you're on that same set?
Pre-visual animation. That's what helped us actually scheduling what we were filming on the interior scenes. What we would do is Steve would plan out and we would roughly animate the CG world, bring in a copy on an iPad to show the actors before they do the parts. But it's very specific. Like anime, the fight moves the story forward.
Yeah.
You're not just there to fight. You're fighting specifically for a reason and in a certain style. So all the actors always have to be on top of the intel. And so Steve would show them, say, this is what's going on. This is the right fist that you punch. Jaeger's coming back with a slash to the face. And all the actors would just respond.
Yeah. So you mentioned that the timing was really the biggest challenge from a producing standpoint. What was the biggest challenge from an acting standpoint for this role?
Nothing.
Really?
Yeah.
It was just easy for you.
Wow, man. It was great. I love Jake. I love playing Jake. It was fun always finding out new interesting ways, to play him, new ideas, amping up his cockiness and arrogance was something that I really enjoyed doing. It was a good old time.
So what kind of ice cream toppings do you prefer in your actual life?
I mean, I wish I had cookie dough. Cookie dough is enough for me. I'm not going to add no sprinkles.
Yeah.
But Jake, he likes sprinkles. It's cream.
Did you happen to see the fan art of you as Blade that was making the rounds earlier today? I've got a picture of it right here. Have you seen this?
Oh wait, is this Boss Logic?
Yes, it is.
Oh yeah, my guy.
Yeah.
What the hell? That's a bit mad. It's a bit young though. You a young Blade?
If you were to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which character, if you could pick any character, which one would you choose?
I really and truly don't know, because when I think about Blade, I think, wow, hey, Wesley coming back too.
Yeah.
And we would all love to see Wesley come back,
Yeah.
one more time before we move on to anybody else. I don't know. Lord. I think the Marvel Universe is doing well right now.
Yeah. Are there any other projects from a producing standpoint that you're interested in pushing forward? I know that a lot of times actors will start production companies to make stories that they couldn't tell because they're not getting involved with the right roles or being offered the right roles. Are there any passion projects that you're really excited about?
Yeah, definitely, and developing now, but I can't speak about it.
Bummer. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, all good.
All right, well, maybe I'll catch up with you for one of those next ones, and we can talk about it then.
Definitely.
So that was John Boyega. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Next up, I speak with Stephen S. DeKnight, who has been working in TV since the late 90s on shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Angel, Smallville, Spartacus, and most recently Marvel's Daredevil. And Pacific Rim Uprising, which he directed, is his feature directorial debut. He co-wrote this movie and actually sort of adopted a TV-style writer's room approach to crafting the script. And when I spoke with him on the Universal Studios lot, he told me all about that. He told me how the film changed after Guillermo del Toro stepped out of the director's chair, the pop culture influences that worked their way into this movie, and working with the cinematographer of Star Wars The Force Awakens to bring this Jaeger-sized sequel to life. Just a quick note before we start, though. This interview was recorded in a trailer, and the air conditioning in the trailer was blowing like crazy the entire time that we were in there. So you're definitely going to hear that in the background. I just wanted to apologize for the sound quality there. I hope you guys can bear with me and stick with it. There's a link to the written version of this interview in the show notes of this podcast episode. So if the air conditioning is too overbearing, again, I apologize. Do me a favor, click that, read this whole thing. I think we had a really good conversation. It's a long one. It's about 20 minutes, which is longer than I've gotten with anyone in a long time. So we dive into a ton of different aspects of making this movie. I hope you enjoy it. Guillermo del Toro has said that he originally wrote a screenplay for this and he worked on a few drafts before he eventually stepped away to direct Shape of Water. So what sort of changes did you make to the script in order to sort of put your own stamp on it?
We basically started from scratch.
Oh, really?
Yes. I put together a writer's room, very much, again, in TV fashion. Half TV writers, half feature writers. I had a storyline in mind that I pitched to Guillermo that he liked. And so I wrote like an 8-page outline, and then from that outline, the other writers helped me flesh everything out. And then I picked 2 of those writers to actually co-write the script. We were in such a time crunch, and all of us had to like take a piece and start working on it.
So what was that process like for you guys? You just literally broke it into sections of the script and then just sort of combined the whole thing?
Yeah, basically what happened is it was me and 2 other writers, Emily Carmichael and Kira Snyder, and we broke the script pretty much in half. Emily took one half, Kira took the other half, and as they would finish scenes, they would send it to me, and I would rework them to put everything together. Cool. So it was a very fast, very TV-esque kind of process.
Yeah. When you write and direct something yourself, you're able to write with a director's eye, essentially knowing what's possible and what's practical to do once you get on set. I know that you just mentioned you worked with a few different writers on this. Were there any moments when they would come up with something, and as a writer, you would be like, man, that's a great idea, but as a director, you're like, how in the heck are we going to achieve this?
Oh, all the time, especially in the room. When ideas were pitched and fantastic ideas, but I had to say, look, I love that idea, but that's an extra $30 million that we are not going to be able to spend.
Really?
Or we are not going to be able to, kill the main character 20 minutes into the movie.
That was on the table?
Everything's on the table. I throw out what I love about the process of a writer's room is even as the director, co-writer, I throw out a lot of bad ideas. I throw out an idea and everybody's like, well, we don't like it because of this, and yeah, actually you're right. So poking holes in the story is part of the process, and everybody pokes everybody. It's fantastic.
And what was it about Kira and Emily that made you choose them for this, to help you out with this project?
I had worked with Kira before. She was part of my writer's room when I was developing a sci-fi military show for Stars called Incursion. So I knew her very well from that. I always loved her writing. She actually wrote a script for that, and I remember saying that this was the first time I ever read a script by somebody else that I wanted to direct. That wasn't my own thing. And Emily I met through Legendary. I saw one of her short films that she did, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. It was quirky, it had great characters.
Which one was that? Do you remember?
It was the one about the 2 thieves.
Okay.
Really great. I don't remember the name of it, but I was really impressed. And I really felt just, from a gut level, these 2 would be the right people. So we wrote a whole draft with Raleigh Beckett as the lead of the movie. Finished it, and literally the day after we finished it, Charlie, it was wonderful. I announced that he was doing his passion project, the remake of Papillon, that shot right in the middle of our schedule.
Right.
And we couldn't move our shoot date because of the release date and other actors' schedule. So we had to quickly retool, and Mary Parent and Guillermo came up with the idea of the Son of Stacker Pentecost. So we brought in the writer T.S. Nolan, who had written the Maze Runner movies. Fantastic guy, who really helped figure out how to change it from Raleigh Beckett to Jake Pentecost.
That seems like something that would throw people into chaos, like a late breaking development like that. How did you guys keep your heads in such a time of crisis when the release date is already locked in? Like, that there's so much work that has to be done.
You just plow forward. If one thing that TV has taught me is that you'll get curveballs. And you've just got to say, okay, all right, well, this is not good, but how do we make it work? It always happens.
Yeah.
And it's also great as a director, because whenever you step on the set, you come on the set ready to shoot Gone with the Wind. I mean, grammar moves and then something happens, and suddenly you lose 4 hours, and you got to throw everything you had planned out the window.
Right.
So you just have to be nimble in all levels of making a movie.
I mentioned your TV work a little while ago, and I would love it if you could tell me a little bit about your experience working on Smallville. I was a really big fan of that show when it was on.
Smallville was great. I was coming off of working on Buffy and Angel, and my friend Jeff Loeb, who went on to be the head of Marvel Television, was over on Smallville, and he said, "Hey, come on over, we'll have fun." And I watched the show, and I liked the show, so I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And Al Goff and Miles Miller, who ran the show, were just fantastic to me. I got a chance to write and direct and produce, and it was great because I love Superman. I thought that the take that Alan Miles had on doing Clark Kent before he became Superman as a teenager was fantastic. And it was a lot of fun. It was grueling. I mean, doing 22 episodes a year, I think that was the last time I ever did 22 episodes a year, and I don't think I could ever do it again.
Yeah.
It's so much work. I've gotten spoiled by cable and streaming by doing, 8 to 13 episodes a year. Now that seems a lot to me now.
Yeah. What is the fondest memory you have from making that show? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
From Smallville?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I was just actually tweeting back and forth with Leslie Ann Brandt, who is on Lucifer. Apparently Tom Welling is guest starring on that show.
Oh, cool.
Hey, I'm here with Tom. And one of my fondest memories is just working with the cast. Tom Welling was fantastic. Michael Rosenbaum just kept me in stitches nonstop. Every single member of the cast was so fun and so lovely. And I got to do like a proto Justice League episode, which was really a high point.
That reminds me, I mean, you have pretty extensive experience with Superman. What do you think about the modern version of Henry Cavill's Superman in the DC movie?
I think he's fantastic. I'm a huge Zack Snyder fan. Superman is one of the hardest characters, I think, because he's so powerful and so good.
Yeah.
Batman, I think, is a lot easier to tackle because he's a human guy that's messed up, that through his own wits goes out and fights the bad guys. Superman is a massively powerful alien from another world. Much harder story. So you have Zack Snyder's take, which is a little grittier. Then you go back to Richard Donner, which was much more gee whiz kind of feel, which I also love. But he is a hard character. Yeah. So I applaud anyone that tries to tackle Superman.
Yeah. So getting back to Uprising, one of the things that I really liked about the movie was the way it sort of felt like a Looney Tunes cartoon almost at certain points. Like there's a moment when a Jaeger welds a rocket to its arm and the rocket whisks it around. Or
yes.
It's something like Wile E. Coyote. Was Looney Tunes actually an influence for you? What sort of inspiration?
No, actually no. I grew on my influences growing up, which were very much Ultraman, Space Giants, Johnny Sacco and his flying robot. A lot of man-in-suit Japanese monster movies, Godzilla, Rodan, Gamera. Those were really my inspirations. And also a touch of the movies I grew up loving in the 70s and 80s. Star Wars, Raiders of the Lost Ark. That kind of adventurous, fun kind of feel were really my biggest influences.
There are a handful of scenes in this movie where the characters are piloting Jaegers and essentially just getting their asses handed to them. What did you do to dictate and differentiate the intensity of those scenes for the actors so it all didn't become a blur when they're in that encased set?
Well, thankfully, unlike TV, we get to use previs, which is the rough computer animation of what the scene will look like. Very, very early, usually before the visual effects company actually becomes involved. Or at the visual effect, before they start to do the actual effects. We have this very rough previs. So I always had my iPad with me. And when we're inside the con pod, before we would do any shot, I would say, okay, here's where we are, here's what's happening. So the actors were very much aware. It's not like the old days where there'd be a green tennis ball and you say, imagine a monster. Now they actually get to see roughly what it's going to look like.
That's cool. You never really worked with CG on this scale before, obviously. Was that a nerve-wracking process? I've heard stories about how vendors were turning in completed shots for different films, right up until the last moment.
Oh, yeah.
Barely crossing the finish line. Was that something that you experienced on this, or?
There's always such a time crush. Yes, there were definitely some minor shots that needed adjustment right up to the 11th hour, and even a little bit beyond that. But it was part of one of the best parts of this experience for me was working with Peter Chang and Double Negative. I love visual effects. Every time I read somebody complaining online about CGI is ruining the movies, it just drives me bananas.
Yeah.
It's like you don't understand how much CGI has helped push movies forward. Mm-hmm. And most people, when they think CGI, they think monsters, robots. They don't think the sheep in the background of Brokeback Mountain.
Right.
They don't see the invisible CGI that allows you to create this stuff. The Marvel Cinematic Universe would not exist without CGI being where it is. So I'm a huge fan of that. And to get to work on this scale with giant Jaegers and giant kaiju and just all aspects. And other simple things, like when Jake and Amara landed the Shatter Dome, that shot with the ships coming in. I love shit like that. I mean, that just excites me. One of my favorite processes was the review process of visual effects. Late in the game, in the post-production process, it becomes basically that's all you do every day. Yeah. It's like 5-6 hours of sitting in a room with a laser pointer saying, this could be better, can we do this, a little more atmosphere over here. But that to me was such a thrilling part of this.
Yeah. What were some of the things in this movie that people that are kind of the CG elements that you're talking about, the things that people might not obviously associate with CG? Were there any particular things that you thought were integrated particularly well into the film in the background or something like that people might not instantly recognize as CG?
Oh man, so many things. So there's one shot that actually we were reviewing it in the room, and I forgot that none of it was real. It's when Jake comes out of the hatch in the Jaeger in Sydney. Mm-hmm. The hatch was real. That was the only thing that was real about that. Wow. Just that hatch. None of the arm, nothing that he lands on. All of that was just boxes with green screen on it and everything. And I remember seeing it on the review, thinking, wow, yeah, that set looks really good. And then I remember, that's not even real.
That's awesome. You made some headlines last year when you mentioned that there's been some discussion about the chance of Pacific Rim crossing over maybe with the King Kong and Godzilla movies. Have there been any more conversations about that?
Just in my own head.
Okay.
Yeah, that was not at all. I don't want anyone to think that was an official legendary thing. That was Steve DeKnight, the fanboy, talking about what he would love to see. I have an idea, a plan for the third part of this Pacific Rim trilogy that would open up the universe and allow that crossover if Legendary wants to. It's totally up to them. As a fanboy, I would love to see it. Yeah. But if they want to keep it separate, I'll still be paying my tickets to see Kong, Godzilla, Pacific Rim.
Cool. I know you're doing a ton of press for this movie, and you're probably hearing a ton of the same questions over and over again. I want to turn things over to you for just a minute and ask, what aspect of this movie would you like to be talking more about that you have not really been asked about yet?
A lot of it, obviously, with a movie like this, a lot of the concentration is on the action, the CGI, the monsters, the Jaegers. For me, what really makes this movie work are the characters and the interactions between the actors. I think for a movie like this to really succeed, you've got to like the characters. You got to be drawn in by the characters. You got to hate the characters in the right way. Otherwise, it's just noise and spectacle with nothing going on. And one of the great things that Guillermo and Travis Beacham did with this concept was putting two people inside a giant mech, with the idea that you have to have two people working together. And that also, that soul in the machine, I think is so important in this movie, because otherwise that final battle in Tokyo would just be non-stop CGI, but instead you have this human element that really grounds it and makes it more interesting, more emotional, and more fun.
So speaking of the human characters, you've got John Boyega leading this movie, who is just one of the most charismatic people. I mean, he has that it thing that when the camera is on him, he is just a movie star up there. Tell me about working with him.
My DP and I, Dan Mendel, we would sit reviewing the movie for all the various formats for color correction, and every time John came on screen, we both looked at each other and said, he's a movie star. There's a definite difference between a great actor and a great actor who's a movie star.
Yeah.
The first time I ever encountered that is I worked with Hugh Jackman briefly on a TV show, and he walked into a room and he's like, "Oh, I understand. There's a genetic difference between the two species." And John just, man, he has that movie star quality, and I'm really excited for people to see him in this movie because he's not the same as Attack the Block. He's not the same as Finn in Star Wars. To me, he's a young Harrison Ford. He's roguish, he's handsome, he's funny, he's daring. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He can do the emotion. He just has it all. I think he is going to get bigger and bigger, and rightly so.
And you mentioned Dan Mendel. Did he shoot Star Wars with J.J. Abrams?
He did.
The same one?
He did.
So what was your relationship like with him, coming up with the physical aesthetic of the movie, the look of it?
Fantastic. Dan's a genius. I mean, he's one of the best cinematographers out there. When you're starting the prep for a movie like this, the studio sends you lists of possible costume designers, production designers, cinematographers. I knew the cinematographer was vital for this movie, and I was going through fantastic names with people that I would love to work with, and then I saw Dan Mendel. And I levitated off my chair. I thought, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to get him, but I'm putting his name at the top of my list. And he came in and we met, and Dan's a fantastic guy. He's a very funny guy, but you need to get to know his personality. He came in, I talked to him, he left, and I told my associate producer, Brooke Worley, yeah, no way he's going to do this movie. And she had worked with him before, and she says, no, I think he's going to. And sure enough, the next day he signed on, and I think it made all the difference. He's one of the reasons that we both really wanted to shoot this in 240 instead of 185. Even though 185 lends itself to giant monsters and Jaegers, I love the 240 format. To me, there's just something that's so cinematic about it, and he also really thought we should shoot with anamorphic lenses, which I also love. And all of that combined, the movie is so rich and layered, and he's such a big part of that.
So that was Stephen S. DeKnight. Thank you all again for putting up with the kaiju-sized air conditioner in the background. That thing was truly ridiculous. That's going to bring us to the end of today's episode of Slash Film Daily. You can find both of these interviews in written form at slashfilm.com. They're linked in the show notes. Slash Film Daily is published every weekday, bringing you the most exciting news from the world of movies and television, as well as deeper dives into the great features that you can find at the site. You can subscribe to Slash Film Daily on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, you know the drill, all the popular podcast apps. Please feel free to send your feedback, questions, comments, concerns, anything, to peter@slashfilm.com. Be sure to leave your name and general geographic location in case we mention your email on the air. And don't forget to rate and review the podcast on iTunes. That really helps us out a lot in terms of placement and getting us in front of more, I was going to say eyeballs, but that's not right, ear holes, I guess. So thank you very much for listening. Tell your friends, spread the word. We'll see you guys on Monday.